Welcome to Laugh Through It All. I'm your host, Tracy. Join me as I talk to Valerie Rubin, a trauma informed somatic coach and anxious attachment specialist, to break down why some of us get so anxious in relationships and, more importantly, how to heal. I cannot get enough of talking about attachment styles. I am so interested in it. I've done so much reading on it and it speaks to my soul. It truly, truly does. So tell me just the basics. What exactly is an anxious attachment and why? We'll start there. Tell us what an anxious attachment is.
Yeah, so I'll start with an anxious attachment is ultimately how we are wired to interact and behave in relational experiences, romantic relationships, but it could also be how you are wired to act and behave in your business or job, your friendships, with your finances. A lot of people can get really stuck in the labels of attachment styles, like, oh, I'm an anxious attachment style. And I feel that people just start with that and they end with that. It's like, okay, this should be our starting point. This shouldn't be our ending point. We don't need to be locked in with and identify ourselves as that. It's a good thing, a first step. But ultimately, an anxious attachment style is formed because a parent or parents were emotionally unavailable or inconsistently attuned to our needs. So because of that, a child is dependent on their caregiver or parent for emotional support. They are completely dependent on you. So if it is inconsistent or not met, of course the child then develops protector parts, like codependency, aka I have a good day when you have a good day. This could look like in romantic
Right.
relationships in adulthood. This looks like if my partner is safe, I'm safe. If my relationship is good, and we're in a good spot, then I'm okay. But if we're not, I don't know how to act. I don't know how to regulate myself. I don't know how to self soothe. And so then our survival is linked with codependency. We're only okay if other people are okay. So then our life is filled with chronic anxiety and this roller coaster of emotions because we've never learned how to meet our own needs of feeling safe, feeling secure, how to process our own emotions, how to feel okay on our own and to source that validation from within because we never receive that from our parent or parents on a consistent basis. So then we become hyper vigilant. This could sound like, as soon as you walk into a room, Tracy, you feel, Valerie, as soon as you walk in, something's going on with you. Like you're hyper
Mhm.
attuned, you're hypersensitive to other people's moods and emotions and feelings. And so anxious attachment also like is a symptom. It's a symptom in adulthood. It looks like lack of confidence, feeling dependent on external validation to feel safe. This could also look like, if my partner has taken 4 hours to respond, this puts us in an overthinking spiral, thinking they passed away, thinking something went wrong, thinking, my partner's not interested in me, my partner's gonna break up with me, like just chronic anxiety in relationships and this fear of abandonment. We're so afraid of our partner leaving because that did happen in our childhood. So our attachment style is wired based on how frequent and attentive and attuned our caregiver or caregivers were with us as children. And so then we go into relationships thinking and blaming my partner is treating me in this way. So that's why I feel so anxious. No. And a lot of the with clients of mine, they're in very healthy romantic relationships, but they feel like the shoe is always going to drop, about to
Yes.
drop. They feel at any moment their partner's going to pull away, at any moment their partner's going to leave them, and then they're so anxious all the time, waiting for their text, waiting for the next thing to go wrong. And so, of course, then it's always going to feel unsafe. You're never going to feel secure in your relationships until you do that deep inner work. Because it doesn't matter how quote unquote perfect your relationship or partner is, you're always going to sabotage it. You're always going to feel anxious because you don't know when that shoe will drop.
Oh God, that before I did the work, let me tell you, that is every single thing you said. Every single thing you said. It just you could have just put Tracy attachment.
Me too.
It,
Valerie attachment. You could put
oh
that
my
too.
God. And it does it does create such a miserable life because like
Absolutely.
every I would analyze and pick apart every mood, every word that they said, and it just until I realized where mine came from, because once I did, it was like, oh, I mean, because if someone had said, "How was your family growing up?" I would have been like, "It was amazing. I had a great childhood." You know what I mean? But
Right.
then you start picking apart and you seeing where some things I'm like, oh my God, it's so clear to me why I am that way with I
Abs-
mean, I think I haven't analyzed it enough in my friendships or in other parts of my
mm,
life, but I know it is very, very obvious in my dating life. Um,
yes.
and
Yes.
I've been
Especially with dating. Yeah.
yes. And I've now been single for so darn long that I don't even know. I haven't even have anybody to practice my secureness with.
There you go. And a lot of people tell me, they felt like they were super secure or more securely attached until they got into a romantic relationship, because our romantic relationships are completely activating to
Yes,
our inner child. Like, we have these younger parts of us, and so if we have learned that our, like, also if we feel responsible for other people's emotions, like, so many parts of us, it feels just so messy in our dating life, because also it's like, oh, I feel like I'm healed. But no, actually, it's probably like no one has triggered those parts of you. And so with our
100%.
inner child, yeah, our inner child will mistake unconsciously our partner as our source of survival and our caregiver if we have unmet needs that have been unresolved from childhood, and it will
Right.
put it onto that partner. So it's like, of course, then I have this big fear of abandonment and separation anxiety for my partner, and I need constant reassurance to feel safe because I don't feel that from within myself.
Mm, God, I love this stuff.
Yes.
It's so crazy. So there's anxious attachment and then you have avoidant attachment, which definitely
Yep.
are my favorite people to date. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, why wouldn't my anxious attachment want to date an avoidant person? And then secure. So talk a little bit about the avoidant. Um, for me, the one thing that I was told in therapy that you search out someone who's going to validate the thoughts you have about yourself. And so if I feel like I'm not good enough or feel like someone's going to, you know, leave at the drop of a hat, those are the types of people and behaviors that I am looking for. Someone who's going to validate that feeling for me. When I heard that, I swear to God, it changed my life because
Yes.
it is so true. I didn't have the love within myself, and so I was looking for things completely wrong. And I got my
Mm-hmm.
I hurt for myself. I'm sad for the person that I was before I've done so
Mm-hmm.
much growth. And so tell us a little bit about the anxious attachment and why do us, or I'm sorry, avoidant attachment and why us anxious people love them so much.
Oh, yeah, this is such a great question. So, there is this commonly known term, the anxious avoidant dance. People who are anxious leaning or anxious attachment, they are very drawn to those avoidant attachers, not because we, necessarily want people who can't hold space for us, but because there's something called repetition compulsion. Basically, what you said, Tracy. Repetition compulsion states that when we have these incomplete cycles from our caregivers, whether they were emotionally unavailable, they were physically or emotionally not present, our inner child is looking to put an end to that story. It's looking to end that childhood loop. So unconsciously, we go into dating relationships, dating these avoidant partners, because the avoidant partner, if I can get them and prove to them that I'm lovable and worthy, then that means that I've always been lovable. So our mind is trying to put an end to that loop. And with avoidant attachment, why people who are anxiously attached are also looking for that. avoidantly attached people and anxiously attached people have the same core fear, the core fear of abandonment, but the coping mechanisms are just slightly different. So with anxiously attached people, we want to go almost like towards the threat. We want to fix it. We want to
Yes.
change it. We want to hope for the best. But avoidant attachers, it's like they are wanting to run from that intimacy versus, but ultimately it's the same core wound. People who are anxiously attached are actually very avoidant to their emotions. They're avoidantly attached to themselves because they become hyper available to other, hyper available to someone who they're dating that's avoidantly attached, and then they abandon their own needs because that's all they've learned was they had
Mm.
to abandon their own needs in order to please and keep that connection to their caregiver or caregivers. And so yeah, and then also in addition to that, because you had an emotionally unavailable parent or parents, what ends up happening is you build this capacity and have so much capacity for neglect, for abuse, even for unavailability. Your nervous system associates unavailability, neglect, chaos, stress as love. So anything outside of that, healthy love, healthy relationships, then we're like, this person is so boring. This person I'm not attracted to. I'm not physically attracted to them. It's not that you're not physically attracted to them or that they're boring. It's just your nervous system associated safety with unavailability, neglect, chaos, and stress.
Oh, God. I already love you so much. I can't even stand it. My mind
Oh.
is going nuts because I have so many. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, amazing. That's so amazing. And it's so obvious to me now, and it's because all of that stuff, why would I choose the same? And that's literally why I started therapy. I've been divorced twice. Um, and I would say my first husband, it was just I was young. So
Mhm.
I don't kind of I don't kind of put him in the same category as everybody since him. You know what I mean? And so, but my second husband and people that I dated, throughout my adulthood, every single one of them are exactly that characteristic. And I'm going to show you what a great family is. I'm going to show you, how it feels to be loved, and so going after it.
Mhm.
And yeah, same thing. Get spooked, and then they run. Oh,
Yeah, and it's not because, they're someone who's avoidantly attached doesn't mean that they're just like horrible people. It's just their brain is
right,
wired differently. And so
right.
for avoidant attachment, the root of that is, when they've reached for support and help from their caregiver or caregivers, they were neglected each time. They were not
Yes,
self-soothed at all. Their nervous system associates safety with neglect and complete unavailability. So then they have this big fear of closeness. Intimacy feels so scary. Being vulnerable is a whole different language that they've never built before. It's like
mhm,
going to the gym. Like you've never gone to the gym and then people expect that they're supposed to be like shredded. You know what I mean? It's the same difference.
right.
But it's very fascinating because when someone is committed and they're maybe more avoidant leaning or avoidantly attached, beautiful things can happen. Everyone is so capable of having an open heart, of connecting. We're wired to connect. We have just learned different coping mechanisms to protect our heart so that we don't experience the same pain that we experienced in childhood. And so with anxious attachment, what keeps them so hooked with people who are more avoidant leaning is because we have learned I need to prove my worth. I'm not good enough. Something's wrong with me. And so it's like I never learned what healthy safe love is, so I have to prove myself. I never was taught unconditional love. I was
Mm,
loved based on my conditions. I was loved on how well I performed in school. I was loved based on what kind of job and how much money I made. I received love from how well you could perform in sports, and so then you never fully learn that. And then when that goes unhealed, that's why we're constantly seeking reassurance and we're addicted to that validation. And so with people who are more avoidant or emotionally unavailable per se, they can be very hot and cold, very
right.
inconsistent in that. So then it,
Yes.
it creates the intermittent reinforcement, this addiction, because the anxious attacher It's a literal addiction. You need that high, but then
Yes.
it's paired with those low lows. It's the same thing that's happening in gambling. It's the same thing, those same neural pathways. So what we do for anxious and more avoidantly attached, both, we need to build capacity to be with our emotions, to learn how to process our emotions, and learn how to communicate effectively, communicate our needs, identify with our needs. What even are
And
our
that's
needs?
going to be the
When we're
hardest part for an avoidant person is that
mm-hmm,
communication piece. I mean, do you think
yes,
anxious people are more open to communicate than an avoidant person?
I would say so, yes. Anxiously attached people, like they see the threat and they're more in a flight
Yes.
nervous system response. They're like, I'll move toward it, I'll try and fix it, I'll try and
Yes.
communicate better. But the avoidant leaning person will want to push that person away unconsciously. They don't even realize that they're doing it. They'll find
Sure.
fault in the anxious leaning person. They will also, yeah, like that fear of closeness feels so terrifying and scary. So, of course, they would want to move away from that. So, with anxious attackers, they want to build capacity to be with their emotions and feel safe in their own body. Avoidantly attached is the same. They want them to feel safe in their body, feel safe with the emotions, but their journey is learning how to create safety and find safety in co-regulating in
Mhm.
relationships. How can I build capacity to be with this other person?
Now you can be both anxious and avoidant, right?
Correct. You can have different areas in your life that you're anxious and avoidant. But yeah, and then that also goes into disorganized attachment. So, disorganized attachment is a combination of the two, anxious and avoidant.
Okay.
It's, I crave closeness, but closeness feels dangerous. So, I'm not sure, like it's very confusing for people. What ends up for a lot of people who are disorganized, who experience disorganized attachment, is they want closeness, they're craving it. It could look very much like anxious attachment, but then once they get it, they self-sabotage it, they push it away. So yeah,
Oh
so
my God, I
it's
wonder if
it
that's what I am.
mm, mm-hmm.
I
And
wonder.
usually people, yeah, usually people who have a disorganized attachment have either had very unpredictable caregivers, one day, like a lot of hot and cold behavior with their parents, maybe narcissistic parents, parents who are alcoholics. You can't really predict their behavior. One day they're lovey dovey, the next day they're extremely cold and neglectful. So, of course, like, which version am I getting? So, it creates a lot of dysregulation in that child and in that person.
Okay, so that is exactly where all of mine stems from is um when I looked back. And even today, my dad is a very hot and cold person. He is that way with absolutely everybody in his world. And as a child, I was made to believe that I was the one that could fix him, that I could make him happy. So if he was in a bad mood, it was me that could get him out of his bad mood. And one day
Mm-hmm.
he there again was playful and very easy to get along with, and then he could go outside and come back in and you could see the change, and then you would assume you did something wrong, even though now as an adult I know that's not the case. So I went after relationships like that. You know, if they pulled back, oh, well, I'm the one that can make them happy. So then I go harder. And that's exactly where
Mm-hmm.
mine stems from. And it's so clear to me now because, that's exactly what it was, the hot and cold. I mean, I grew up with my parents are still married. My mom is not that way. My dad is. So unfortunately, as much as I love my father, I do put that on my dad on how I am in loving relationships and in opposites, in relationships, opposite sex relationships. But so that makes sense as so because I do find myself in these later years that if I do start dating someone who seems like they are into me and like me, I 100% immediately start thinking of reasons why it's not going to work. Even though they've given me no indication of that, I start, well, it's going to end anyway, so you know, I might as well end it because it's going to end. So would
Yes,
that
yes, there's that.
sound like that?
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it because it's like you crave closeness, you crave that connection, you want someone
Very
to like you, to
much.
cherish you, to adore you, but then it's like, well, it's gonna end anyway, so I might
Yes.
as well break up with them. So that's where that self sabotage really comes in. But it's really ultimately just coming from this wall around your heart and this fear of abandonment from your father. And our parents can have well intent, but that doesn't mean that they didn't cause attachment trauma. And
Right.
so now it's our work to continue to take radical accountability for this is where I'm at and what are the steps that I can take to get there. And adding on your point of like this part of you that feels like I can fix them, a lot of like self blame. It's like I can
Mhm.
fix them, I can make them happy, I can just prove my worth. And that's also like a form of um like it's a protector part. Like I can fix them. I definitely had a fixer part.
Mhm.
Because it's like as a child, I'm sure you wanted to fix, help, rescue your dad, and a lot of people
Make him happy,
unconsciously
make him
find
in
a
a
lot
good
of
mood.
value. Yeah, they find that okay, I never learned how to get my self worth from within, so let me just prove it to other people by showing that I'm valuable. And that's with people
Mhm.
pleasing, like over giving. And with people pleasing, a lot of it is having so much suppressed anger, pleasing, proving, over giving. And then it's like the soul, that child has all this suppressed anger because we learn
Mhm.
it's unsafe to connect to our body, to our sensations. And when we learn that it's safe to say no, we learn that, what if it's okay for me to set limits for myself?
Mhm.
Then that's when we will start to attract better relationships because we are stating our needs. And we're not doing that through just telling ourselves to set boundaries because if it were that easy, everyone would do it. But that's why we need to work with the somatic piece, working with the body. I do not do talk therapy. I do somatic work because this is rooted in our body. That fear of abandonment, you can talk yourself out of it, try and say, don't sabotage this relationship. You could try and rationalize your way through it, but it never works. So that's the power of somatic work with around people pleasing, fear of abandonment, you know, embodying that self confidence, self worth, and healing that chronic anxiety that's keeping you stuck in the same relationship patterns.
So how is that different than your typical talking therapy? How is that different? I'm not sure that I understand.
Yeah, so talk therapy, right? Like we cannot logic our way out of anxiety or a panic attack. Like, you've mentioned that you have worked with special needs children. You can
Mhm.
say anything that you want to this child.
Mhm.
Like, please calm down. Let's keep our
Right.
hands to
Yeah.
ourselves, safe hand, body. But they do not give a flying F.
No.
Want to rage at you. They might want to hit you, cuss at you, scream at you. You can't rationalize out of it. What we need to do is we want to heal the trauma that's stored in our body. That fear of abandonment, we learn, okay, it's not safe. I'm not safe. And then we lock that into our body. This can show up as chronic anxiety, heaviness in our chest. We're never able to fully take a deep breath. We're never able to relax. We can't sit still. We always have to keep ourselves moving. And so somatic therapy helps us to actually find where these trauma memories are located in our body and release them. We're able to, the body keeps the score. We can't ration our way through it. That's why, like, no talking yourself, you can't talk yourself into safety. You have to embody that and feel that from the body. So I utilize a somatic therapy called brainspotting. It helps to locate where the trauma memories are stored and release them. So what this might look like is, so for example, where we look affects how our nervous system feels. So you might notice if you're talking to someone, Tracy, someone might look up, to the side, down. Their brain is always processing. So with brain spotting, we help you to find where that brain spotting is. Let's use the fear of abandonment or anxiety. So we identify, okay, where am I noticing this anxiety in my body? I notice it as, tightness in my chest. I feel caving into my shoulders. I feel my stomach is in knots. And then we look around into our space, look around the room from left to right, for example, find a spot that amplifies our anxiety or fear of abandonment, and then what that ends up doing is it helps to release that trauma that's been stored in that deeper part of the brain that no talking can resolve. It's in our body, and so that will actually resolve the stress. After that, clients will tell me, I finally feel relief. I feel like I can take a deep breath. Now I don't feel as triggered by my ex-husband. Now I feel like I can be more present for my children when they're having a tantrum. I now feel like my partner isn't going to just get up and leave me. And different memories can come up when we're in brain spotting, for example, different sensations, different images from our childhood. They're just waiting to be processed. And so we might consciously know, hey, this fear of abandonment comes from my dad being hot and cold, but it's still stuck in our body. The pattern is still showing up consciously and unconsciously. So
So
that would be the key
you're
difference
making
there.
yourself aware of where you're feeling it in order to release that.
Yes,
Am I understanding
absolutely.
that? Okay.
Yes.
Wow, that is, yeah, that is interesting. It kind of reminds me, which may be completely different because I don't know all the science, but EMDR. Have you heard of
Yes.
that?
EMDR.
Brain same
Yep.
thing.
EMDR is the same thing as brain spotting, and EMDR is
Oh,
another great somatic tool. So EMDR, what you're doing is you're looking it's like your finger, you're moving your eyes from side to side. The only
yes.
difference is with brain spotting, we're finding that specific point that's activated. We're finding that spot where that trauma memory is located. So I will use a literal pointer that looks like this. So this
Hmm.
fear of abandonment, I'll tell my client, okay, noticing that anxiety, that fear of abandonment, it's heavy in my chest. Okay, I go across their visual field. Oh, I feel it the most here. Oh, a memory came up here, and we process our way through it, through the body.
That I've done that EMDR. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing it completely every time I thought of of this one particular thing, every time I thought about it, I would just sob. And
Mm-hmm.
doing that, I never cried about it again. That vision was
Yes.
gone. I no longer, it didn't just flash in front of me, out of nowhere. And I mean, I was so thankful for that. Oddly enough, I just did a podcast just earlier. I just filmed the one I filmed before this one was on dreams. And I asked if that was the same, if dreams are in the same part of your brain that the EMDR type thing works because you are putting your body in a certain place sometimes. And I said that when I was doing the EMDR, um, I was at a certain location and I was trying, and he said, okay, go ahead and walk out. I could not walk out. I would get to the door and I would freeze and I wasn't able to leave. And he said, there are more things that you need to resolve from this place in order for you to leave. And that just
Mm-hmm.
blows my mind. But yeah, that sounded the same from because your images can skip from place to place to place.
Absolutely. And it's like no amount of talking yourself into opening
No.
up that door and leaving, you couldn't convince yourself to do that. So that's the power of EMDR. That's the power of somatic therapy. That is the power of brain science. And doing and also I do something called somatic IFS, somatic parts work. It's working with these protector parts that are keeping us stuck playing out the same dynamics. This looks like the protector part of the fixer role, um, different different parts like proving my worth, over giving, perfectionism, people pleasing, procrastination. All of these parts of ourselves are a reflection of unmet needs. These unmet needs, it's trying to fulfill an unmet need from childhood. And so when we've experienced trauma at a certain age, even 5 years old or even 2 years old, 3 years old, whenever we've experienced trauma, we learn, hey, from this point on, it is not safe for me to be myself. I have to prove myself. I have to fix my dad. I have to do that in order to feel valuable. And then we're running on that for decades and decades of our life until usually we're smacked in the face many times in different
Right.
relationships.
Yes. And you can do that type of therapy online?
Yeah, absolutely. People find it even more relaxing online because it's like, oh, I'm going in this random, like, stranger's office. I might have never met them before. Maybe I'm uncomfortable. That means that, like, when you're online, you could be in your bed, you can be in
Right.
your pajamas. And so a lot of people feel that they can relax even deeper in their own space.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you, this was in person, and the thought of me closing my eyes, and him just sitting there staring at me is a little hard, you know what I mean? It's a little hard to get into that mode when you know someone's sitting literally right in front of you staring at you.
Yeah, I hear that. That fear of being seen is also super common in people who are anxious attached, all attachment wounds, all attachment styles. And yeah, it can be very confronting when people are seeing you in your mess,
Yeah.
seeing you in your imperfect parts.
Oh my, absolutely. And you said that this is it common for it to show up in any type of relationship. So if you've got it in your personal relationships, like with friendships or work colleagues, they usually go
Absolutely.
across the board.
Absolutely. Some people can have different attachments. Some people can be very avoidantly attached in their relationships, but be very anxiously attached in their business or job, and then they could be very secure in their friendships, and then a different one with their finances. But like for me, it used to be anxious all across the board. Like I would feel anxiously attached in romantic relationships, anxiously attached in friendships, and then also anxiously attached to my business and to my clients. So it's definitely not singular to just one area of your life. It usually will have a domino effect on each area of your life, on money, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have different areas of my life that I'm way more confident in, in my work life and things like that. But I do see it sometimes in friendships, especially in relation and love relationships. I definitely have an issue with the communication where if it's not soon enough or it's not, even though in my head I'm thinking, that's just different communication styles sometimes, which I'm now understanding, is that someone may not be, I'm a immediate texter back because that's just how I am. And I'll email you back right away if I hear it, I will do it, and that's not everybody. And it's taken me a very long time
Right.
to accept the fact that it's not that they're not wanting to message me back. It's that they may have a different communication style. And as I've gotten a little more mature,
Correct.
I've actually asked people, like people that I was dating or, trying to get to know, and I would ask, what, just out of curiosity, what is your communication style? Are you somewhat, and try
Hmm.
to I said, I just want to, kind of get a handle on what it is. And so some people are
Right.
receptive and other people are like, woo, this person's way too emotionally mature for me.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And when you do the healing work, you will repel a lot of people, and that is the point. And so coming back to this point of like feeling like people aren't responding soon enough because you're very used to responding right away. I
Yes.
definitely used to be that type of person that would respond right away typically. um but then as I've worked on becoming more securely attached and feeling safe within my own body and working more on my codependent parts and codependency, I have felt less urgent to respond to text messages. And it has nothing with not caring for other people. It's just like
Sure.
realizing, well, like I already have such a full life. I have so much going on, but it's because I healed my fear of abandonment. The not soon enough, it's not about them not responding. Like you can rationalize your way through and being like, they're fine, they're at work, but you still have that anxiety and your heart's
100%.
probably racing. And it's
Yes.
not because of them not responding, it's because of what that's representing. It's representing, oh, like they are going to lose interest in me. They're gonna leave me. Oh, this happened again. They left me. It's your brain is making it mean something about you, that I'm not worthy. Something's wrong with me. I'm not good enough. And so that's really important. to note within yourself. It's not about them. They are the object. Our reaction is up to us. It's unconscious. It's happening
Right.
from not our adult true self. It's coming from that 4-year-old part, that 4-year-old who learned that I have to prove my worth to my dad by fixing him, by trying to make him happy, by serving him, by, so that I can make sure that no one leaves me ever again.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, let me overgive and respond as soon as possible.
How is it attached to your nervous system? Like, help me understand
Yes, such a great
that.
question. Yes, literally,
Because I
this
know
is one
your
of my favorite
response
questions.
is your nervous system. So how does that
Absolutely.
even come about?
Oh, that is such a great question, Tracy. So, how your attachment styles are based on your nervous system is this. So, there's something called polyvagal theory. This is ultimately a ladder of our nervous system. So, at the bottom is freeze and shut down. This looks like depression. This could also look like if you are going through a breakup, you are wanting to look at your ex's social media because you are so shut down. And
Mhm.
then our body naturally wants to come into homeostasis, which is ventral vagal, relaxation, feelings and thoughts of I am safe, I am connected, gratitude. And then in the middle is that sympathetic fight flight nervous system state. This is anxiety, OCD like symptoms, overthinking, rumination, um, wanting to run away from the threat. So we have here at the bottom a freeze nervous system state. This looks like your attachment style is avoidant because if I'm stuck in freeze and I feel like everything is a mountain, everything feels so difficult, the last thing I can think of is someone else's emotions. The last thing I can think of is responding to someone's text because I have such little energy and no one ever met my needs, so I never learned to meet other people's needs. So that's the bottom of the polyvagal theory. Then in the middle is anxious attachment, that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system state. This looks like fixing, proving, chronically anxious in relationships, overgiving, people pleasing, different things like that. That codependency. Codependency is literally just a sign that I don't feel safe internally, so I have to find it externally. And then there's ventral vagal, which is that relaxation state. That is secure attachment. That
Okay.
is, I feel safe being vulnerable with someone. I feel safe in closeness. I feel safe in long term relationships. My relationships are long lasting. My relationships are deep and fulfilling. There is, and I'm doing that with an open heart. That is secure attachment. So you can see how your nervous system is a reflection of your
Mm-hmm.
attachment. It's facts. And so when the number one thing our clients with is getting people to actually connect to their body and learn specific tools to get out of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn nervous system states. So, fight, which is anger, flight, which is that anxiety, OCD like state, um, freeze, which is that depression like state, and then fawn, people pleasing. We need specific tools because specific tools are made for specific nervous system states. Specific tools that are made for depression are not going to be helpful in states of anxiety or sympathetic. So that is how our attachment style is impacted and attached to our nervous system state.
That is so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that makes so much sense. Okay, so say if I did the type of therapy you're talking about, and I am thinking that I am through talk therapy, I have grown so much, but then I also, of course, haven't had any chance to test that those the my maturity. If I am feeling good where I'm at now, how do you approach if I did your type of therapy? How do you go in and make sure that that is the case? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so let me just clarify what you're asking. So you're asking me like, how can I tell if you're actually feeling good in
Yeah,
relationships? Is
like
that what you were
if
asking?
I came to you and said, I've done talk therapy, I still want to make sure that I am healing that anxious attachment that I have. Um, how can you help me do that? Like your type of uh,
Yes.
yes. So do you then take me to try to get me to go to the childhood place where that started, or you know what I mean? Like, is that where you
Yeah,
would
yeah, yeah,
start?
yeah.
Okay.
Right. So this is where I'll start, where I start with clients, and then I'll kind of walk you through what my roadmap looks like. So I have a signature 8 week one-on-one anxious to oh, I can't speak. I have an 8 week one-on-one freedom from anxious attachment blueprint. This is my signature blueprint and roadmap to get you from anxious attached to securely attached in your relationships. So what this looks like is we start by, of course, talking a little bit about our childhood, talking about what got us here, what your relationship history has been like. Then we go into the nervous system, specific tools customized for you to get out of flight, fight, freeze, and fawn responses. We are teaching your nervous system how to feel safe, how to re regulate itself after years of being stressed out, traumatized, in you know, relationships that aren't meeting your needs. Then I connect you to your body. People who are anxiously attached are very anxious. They're very in their head. They're very disconnected from our body. And talk therapy keeps you there. It keeps you stuck there. And it has you intellectualizing things, which isn't processing. So what we want to do is I help with somatic exercises, getting you connected to your body, to your feelings, to your sensations. Then we go into parts work, identifying what parts are keeping you stuck in an anxious avoidant relationship or in relationships with emotionally unavailable partners. We're addressing, are you emotionally unavailable to yourself? We are addressing protector parts like the fixer part, rescuing, perfectionism, people pleasing, overgiving. We are working on all these parts of you that are keeping you in that state. Also, pedestalizing partners. If we put them on a pedestal, codependency, all of these parts of us, we're working on that. And then we're going into the deeper dive work of somatic therapy. So I also am a hypnotherapist as well. So sometimes I will go to the root of where did your subconscious first learn I wasn't good enough? Because every child, every baby was born completely secure and worthy. We have just received conditioning, learned experiences, trauma that have told us we're not good enough. Something is wrong with me. And so when we go back to that first time that has ever happened and rewire it and heal that inner child work, that is when everything shifts because when we go back and heal something from our past, when we see that in our mind, our brain doesn't know the difference between something real and imagined. That's why when you're thinking of worst case scenarios, it feels so big. It feels like I'm living it now. So, inner child healing, when you are doing that work, you're literally going back and healing that 4-year-old in real time in your brain. Then, so we're doing that inner child work, and then we're going into the brain spotting, the somatic therapy, fear of abandonment, healing those mother father wounds, that grief that we have been stuck with for so long for not getting our needs met, that sadness that wow, like my dad was an alcoholic, this sexual trauma did happen, and processing the lasting effects and the triggers that are keeping you in these toxic dynamics and toxic relationships in your adult life.
You are
And
amazing.
then we're thank you. And then we're also rewiring our body to feel safe with healthy love. We're rewiring our body. What if it's safe to experience more joy? We have to also rewire our body for new experiences other than survival. So that's my whole 8 week program in a nutshell.
So in 8 weeks, it's very doable to undo. Well, I guess undo really is really undo the right word to use, or it's just you're training new ways.
Yeah, I look more of it as we're repairing what needs
Oh,
loving,
okay.
tender care.
Yeah.
Like we're just, anxious attachment isn't a quote unquote bad thing. It's just showing us I have parts of me that don't feel safe and worthy as I am. So I have these compensatory behaviors that I'm doing to compensate for not feeling good enough. And so when we heal the roots of that, we naturally become more securely attached. We naturally feel safer in our body. We naturally feel less anxiety. And then we are attracting people who reflect that worth back to us because we are embodying that worth. So we will then become repulsed by people who are hot and cold, narcissistic,
Mhm.
emotionally unavailable because we have completely rewired our nervous system to be securely attached. So it's really just tending to those parts of us that are hurting.
What is something if, say, someone is, again, I've done some work, so I feel a little farther along, but what would be like a small daily habit that someone who is anxiously attached, what's something that they could start working on?
Processing their emotions through the body. That is a daily habit. Setting an alarm on your phone. I literally have an alarm at 9:30 every single night that says process your emotions. And so I do a daily habit of that, and you can't do that through here. You can't do it through the mind and intellectualizing. You have to do it through the body. I have a free meditation that walks you through exactly how to do that in the link in
Okay,
my bio on my Instagram. And I'd love to send that to you, Tracy, in the show notes. You can put it for everywhere. It's completely free. It teaches
definitely.
you ways how to process your emotions. There's somatic exercises in there, and then there's a bit of inner child healing. It's literally under 15 minutes, and if you do that daily, you will become more secure. But we just have to make sure that we're accountable and doing that as consistent as possible because people also are like, well, why is it taking so long? Well, maybe because we've been conditioned for years and years, it might take a little bit. It might
Right,
take more intention and consistency because that's what will heal you is being consistent with yourself emotionally because we did not get that. We're becoming the securely attached parent from within. From within. This means you will refuse to settle. You will stay
right.
single until you find someone who meets your energetic standard.
And now, if you are in a relationship with, and you're the only one working on healing yourself, can you be in a successful relationship where one partner is working on it and another one is not?
Absolutely, depending on your partner. Like if they are a healthy, secure partner, then of course. But and even I've coached many clients who have more avoidant leaning partners.
Yes.
But if the partner who is avoidant leaning is willing to do inner work or willing to do that, of course you can make it happen or work. But also some people are so anxiously attached that they're extremely codependent and that would push anyone away. So it's like when we also can heal those parts of us, that anxiety, that fear of abandonment, that anxious attachment, people who are avoidant leaning will actually feel a lot safer with you and communication becomes a lot easier because you're also modeling the standard. So naturally, a lot of the time they will go forward, but ultimately the only thing we can control is ourselves. And people ask me all the time, like, what if I outgrow my partner? You might. You very
Hmm.
much might. And that's also, I ask people on the very first date. I'm currently single in this moment. I ask people on the very first date, like, what are your thoughts on therapy or coaching? Have you ever been?
Oh,
If they
for
said,
sure.
I've never needed it, instant red flag. You cannot
Yeah,
tell me you're in your 30s and you've never needed therapy, some sort of mental health support, okay? So if you're not working on yourself and your emotions and you've never invested in that, then you're clearly not going to be able to hold space for my emotions and be there to
right.
support me if you can't do that for yourself. And so that is like my number one thing to ask people.
It's funny because that was going to be the next thing I was going to ask you is, as an anxious person, what would be some red flags and some green flags that you would look for? And so no therapy, you said,
Awesome
for
question.
sure is a red flag for you.
Yes. So I would say some green flags, starting out with some green flags, is they are consistent. Their intentions match their actions. Their words
Mm,
match their actions. Other green flags, they are consistent with you. And this doesn't mean that they necessarily will text you 24/7, but maybe
sure.
they text you good morning and good night, or maybe have a phone call with you every day. Or maybe they ask you how you're doing each day, or maybe
Hmm.
send a good morning text and then they ask you in the evening, how was your day? Right? And they're consistent over time. um, it's a slow and steady burn. This does not mean love bombing. This does not mean
Mm,
hot and cold.
mm,
And people who are emotionally unavailable, they will come on fast and strong. Love bombing. It is, you can tell if it's not genuine interest because they don't know you enough to tell
right.
you certain things. they don't know you deeply enough to tell you you're my soulmate after one date.
Yeah.
People who are emotionally unavailable, they will wear a mask and they can show
Oh,
up and look like they are secure. But that is why we want to be slow, set the pace, go slow in our pacing in those early stages of dating, because there's that honeymoon period. So in that 3 to 6 months, after 6 months, if they are still consistent, like then that's showing that they are more secure. If they're still that same person, but you know, we can't wear a mask forever. So,
mm-mm.
but that's the part with people who are anxiously attached. When someone is love bombing us, or they are going very fast, myself included. That has definitely happened to me. In a previous relationship, I moved in with
Same.
someone 4 months after we started dating. That did not go well,
Yeah.
okay? You know what I mean? But that was because it soothed, yeah, like it soothed my own
Absolutely.
abandonment fear. Yeah, it soothed those
Yes.
fears of abandonment. And so when you can, now I'm like, oh my God, I would never do that ever again. I learned my
Right.
lesson for sure. but, but the whole aspect of it is going slow. And when you heal that fear of abandonment, you won't feel the need to grip so tightly, and you will feel safer to be like, okay, whether or not they're in my life, I am okay. That is really the definition of securely attached. You feel like whether this person is with me or not, I will be okay.
That's yeah, and that's a huge place to come to because especially if you started off as an anxious attachment because that doesn't seem possible when you're in it.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and that's where nervous system regulation comes in, helping our body that it's safe to be slow, it's safe to, you know, be okay within ourselves, that it feels safer to go slow in those early stages of dating, because that's extremely important in healthy relationships. Someone who's securely attached isn't going to be wanting to move in with you and say I love you, or wanting to date you after one date.
Exactly. What do you think is one thing that people get like totally wrong about healing their attachment wounds, I'll call it?
Is they're waiting for their partner to change in order to feel good enough. They're waiting for their partner to change, then then I'll feel secure. My anxiety will go away when my partner shows up in this way. You know, my anxiety will go away when I meet the perfect partner. Newsflash, if someone's quote unquote perfect, which there's no such thing. Even if someone is securely attached, they will still trigger you at times, and we're
Right.
human, and that is the point. Uh, so that's number one, looking for my partner to change for me to feel safe. Number two, doing just talk therapy, staying in our head, intellectualizing. We can know why we're doing the things we're doing, and it's coming from our body. We're still doing it. So people are reading books, listening to podcasts. Podcasts are great, but it's not getting to that subconscious, that trauma. It's not getting into those deeper parts of the brain that we can't do through talking. It's not rewiring our nervous system. You know, we learned this inconsistency. Parents were misattuned to us. They weren't helping us feel safe in our emotions. So we want to make sure that we're doing the same thing. We're rewiring, we're attuning to ourselves. We are processing our emotions, and we can't do that through reading or talk therapy.
Right.
And so that's another thing that people get wrong about healing attachment wounds. People also believe that I have to remember my childhood to heal attachment wounds. Not necessarily. In somatic therapy, a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, some of the time, you might not even know. Like, you might have a big physiological release of, like, a lot of clients will tell me, I feel tingles all down my arms. I
Mhm.
feel certain pains in my body, and now they're shifting. And maybe I'm having different releases, like yawning, different releases of coughing, um, many different releases in the body. And then they're like, the next day, they're like, wow, I'm not sure about my partner as much, or wow, that pattern is completely gone, or wow, 3 months later, I'm a completely different person, and my heart is so open. And so
Mm.
there's there's that. You do not need to remember your childhood trauma or your childhood in order to heal from it or heal your attachment wounds. I would say those are the biggest mistakes people make
Okay.
in trying to heal their attachment wounds.
Is being anxious ever a good thing in a relationship?
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely. I'll answer that in this way. Anxiety is not a bad thing. Anxiety is our internal compass that's showing this doesn't feel right for me. So even
right.
people who are secure will have anxiety at times. You know, someone's narcissistic or hot and cold, you know, it's meant to bring anxiety because we're wired for when you do that healing work and you're wired for that safety, that's going to register as a red flag. You want that anxiety to be like, maybe I should run away. This is not good for me. And so I feel in that way, having anxiety is a natural response. And it's not something we want to completely get rid of, because we want to be able to see those red flags. We want to see what feels good and doesn't feel good in our body. And this might not even make logical sense. There's been many times I've gone on dates and I feel this anxiety, and I'm like, where is this coming from? And then I'm like, something feels off in
Yes.
this dynamic. That's
Yes.
always true. Our body will know before our conscious mind. So it's like, and I've always been proven correct every single time I have said no.
Same. I have such an accurate gut feeling. It's
Yes,
scary sometimes. And so absolutely I agree 100% on that one is so when I mean it sounds so cliche, oh, trust your gut. No, I like it is my guide most of the time.
absolutely.
So
Those gut feelings are so imperative.
yes, agree. Especially in this dating world, it's not always easy.
That's right. That's right. Let me tell you.
And I'm way older than you, so it doesn't get any easier. You'd think, I'm
Correct.
52. You think that at my age that I would come across more secure people, more people who know what they want and are looking to enjoy this, they've learned things from their past relationships. No, it gets no better. Gets absolutely no better.
Yeah. Yeah, but when we also rewire our attachment style and we rewire our nervous system and we become more wired for healthy love, we then expect and we'll see more of it in our
Right.
external reality.
Do
But
you
yeah, age doesn't equal maturity or healing your
no.
attachment wounds. So 100%, you're completely right, Tracy.
Last final thought here is if you had to give one piece of advice for someone who is struggling with anxious attachment, what would it be?
I would say the love that you're looking for outside of you is all available from within you. As soon as you connect with that little girl or little boy inside you, that that that's where it is. That's where it is. The love is coming from within you. It won't be coming from outside of you fully. Unless we heal that little girl or little boy inside of us, it will never feel fully secure and safe in relationships.
Thank you for joining me. As always, do better, expect better, and be better. And remember to laugh through it all. Don't forget to check out my Shopify page where you can pick up some do better, expect better, be better, and some laugh through it all merchandise. Link is in the description.